Greetings, everyone. I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this webinar. My name is Stefan Hyman, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management at San Diego State University. I want to thank my colleagues at Michigan State and Stony Brook for their collaboration on today's event. We're hosting this during a very unique time in all of our lives, but there's, I really believe, a light at the end of the tunnel in many, many respects. COVID vaccines have been released, and many in the US have already received them. And we're excited about what the future is going to bring as the pace of vaccination really picks up over the coming months. We have a new administration in the US with an agenda that really emphasizes our partnerships with countries around the world. And we in the higher education community are very optimistic for the outlook for fall 2021 and later. For you, I really believe this is a great time to be excited about coming to the US for study abroad. I truly believe that, and I do hope that all of you and your loved ones are managing very well during this time period. Know that you have the support of everyone in the US higher education community, especially the three universities that are here today. Two quick housekeeping items that I just wanted to share. Number one, this is being recorded. So if you feel that you miss anything, we will be able to post this online a little bit later in the day. So don't worry about having to take notes. We'll make sure that you have access to that. Second, please feel free to make use of the Q&A feature within this Zoom. After we get through some of the material that we pre-prepared for today, we'll be very glad to answer all of your questions. With that, let me very quickly introduce our co-presenters today. Stacy Munsky-Aquero is International Admissions Advisor at Stony Brook University in New York. As I previously introduced myself, my name is Stefan Hyman. Alex Smith is Assistant Director for International Admissions at Michigan State University. Sandra Tamoris Valdez is Senior Director of Enrollment Services at San Diego State University. And Edward West is the Assistant Dean for International Strategy and Programs at the Global Campus within San Diego State University. Thank you to all of my colleagues who have joined us today. And it's my pleasure now to turn the program over to Stacy Aquero to really begin speaking about how the admissions process has changed during this unique time in our lives.
Thank you so much, Stefan. And again, thank you all for attending. We will continue to monitor the Q&A as Stefan had mentioned, so please do ask questions in the Q&A. We will either answer them live or continue to type them. But we really want to talk about how the admissions process has changed a bit. And if I just ask Stefan to move to the next slide. We will talk about the varying parts of an application in which we look at things differently, or sometimes look at things. Sometimes I always say the more things stay the same, the more things change as well. So that's a little American expression that might ring true a little bit. The biggest one, however, is test optional. Many of you as students or parents on the line or counselors on the line constantly are hearing that many universities, colleges throughout the United States are test optional. And what does that mean? And what does that mean when it's test optional versus English proficiency? Test optional really refers to those fun exams known as the SAT or the ACT, where English proficiency for the number of institutions throughout the United States can vary. We have over 4,500 institutions in the United States. Each of them will have varying admissions criteria for international students along those lines of English proficiency and what would entail an English proficiency score or proof of that English proficiency. Sometimes it might be an exam like a TOEFL or a Duolingo. Sometimes it could just be proof of English from a specific country or a curriculum that you're doing like an IB or A level. So those are kinds of differences that you're going to want to look at. But most universities are test optional for fall 2021 and some beyond that, and some are still deciding what that will be. Many students, regardless of what grade you are in high school right now, are really concerned because perhaps last year or even parts of this year high school grades are not posted on a transcript. They might be pass fail, they might have an exemption, they might have some kind of indication that the 2020 year was not the same. Well, we all in this webinar and in the admissions arena understand that and know that. So we're looking at all of that with knowing that your high school could probably shut down. Were you able to go to remote learning? Were you able to dial in or log into remote learning because of internet issues? Were you able to go back this year? There are so many challenges that each of you are facing during your high school time, or your students are facing during this high school time, and we understand that. For my school counselors on this call, this is where the school profile is going to become tremendously handy. And we've seen it already on the Common App with all of those COVID indications and explanations of what your school did. But I think the biggest word that I've been using is the word flexibility. Every person understands that you've had to change the way you have taught your students as students, the way you have had to learn and take exams, and we understand that when reading those applications. And at this time, I just have to say to all who are listening, my parents, my students, and my counselors, that I really, in reading the applications so far for fall 2021, I just commend all of you for having the strength and the ability to persevere through this time, because it could be easy to just sort of take a pass and not continue on with some of the great studies you're doing, some of the great extracurriculars you're doing, um, and really just what I would call slide by. But in fact, we're seeing the amazing perseverance of all of our students and the staff to get you through it, and it's just amazing in my eyes. Other parts of the review of applications that could be challenging, but again, we're understanding of it. Exam issues and changes, those in particular curriculums where exams have national exams have been canceled, and again, that might be indicated as a pass fail or just an exemption. We understand all of that. Elective course cancellation. So you might be required to take a certain amount of courses, but some of those extra courses that you think might have helped along with your application, those courses might have been canceled. I know my daughter's in high school and her electives were canceled this year. But we again get it, and that's where your school profile is going to come into play, and we're going to know that. So on the other hand, because we know all of these things and there might be some more limited information in your application, this is where some of the other parts of your application might really have the ability to talk about those kinds of areas, as well as where you might shine. Your essay or personal statement is absolutely going to, it always plays an important role in the review of application. um, you have the opportunity, if there's something very specific that you want to talk about that has been affected over the past year because of that, to of course put in a personal statement. Of course, be mindful of an essay topic. If it's a free topic, you can of course speak to that. But sometimes those little nuances of a particular point that you want to get across are in a separate personal statement beyond the essay. Your letter of reference really, to me, is of course always a letter from a school counselor or a teacher who can speak of your academic ability. Now, of course, it is going to be perhaps more challenging uh, when you had some remote learning, but of course, teachers are always willing to write something, and we're going to certainly look at that, probably even perhaps a little more than in the past, because we understand the difference of remote learning and look into that. The last thing I want to talk about in terms of the review of application, schools always look at extracurricular activities. I always say we look at them in context of what is offered at your school, and in your surrounding areas, knowing that not all high schools, not all regions of the world focus on extracurriculars like we do in the US. However, we know not only here in the US, but across the globe, that many extracurricular activities have been canceled, even if school is physically in session, the extracurriculars are not there. Um, but I also always like to talk about that. Let me take a step back. So we're going to, of course, take that into consideration, and not, we would never penalize a student for any of these changes that had to happen. Whatever is not in your control, you would not be penalized in terms of a review of application. But I'll give you another scenario of, I was doing a Zoom phone call with a student, and they were talking about how they really don't have any extracurricular activities. And I happened to see in their room, they were right behind, they were sitting at their desk, and behind them was a guitar. And I said, "Oh, do you play guitar?" And he said, "Yeah." And I started asking a couple of questions about how long he played and what he liked to play. And I said, "Okay, well, that's an extracurricular activity." So don't always think that it has to be something that's within your school. They're hobbies, they are passions, they are things that you just do outside of studying for school. So it doesn't have to always be something that's a school organized event to be an extracurricular activity. Next slide, please. So, of course, beyond the curricular that has changed, and therefore we've had to change the way we look at applications, our world of meeting each of you, or seeing you again, has changed. And what I call the Zoom, Google Meet, and Teams, oh my, has really become our world. And I can probably say that each of us have done some virtual sessions before, because we don't, you know cannot in the past physically come to each and every high school across the globe and region. But of course, we've all traveled uh, to many of your regions and high schools. So virtual fairs are not necessarily new to the admissions world, but it has become our only source of of being able to communicate with each of you. So, in that case, we've embraced this virtual world, as all of you are, and we know that many of you are, quote unquote, zoomed out, but we're hopeful that in a few months we'll be able to travel back to many of your countries and see you. But we also think that some of these will sort of forever be, because it's really an easy way for us to communicate on an ongoing basis. So with that, there are virtual college fairs throughout the globe, happening constantly by a number of vendors, a number of organizations that will bring to you 20, 50, 100 universities that will all be on one platform, and you can jump from, quote unquote, virtual booth to booth. If you really need assistance and want to go to some of these, we can talk after, and we'd be happy to send you some links of some virtual college fairs that are larger, where many institutions will be present. Virtual tours, we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but I can confidently say that almost every institution in the US now has virtual tours set up on their website. There's a great website that will have several virtual tours of multiple schools on there as well. Social media in general, I know that there are many social media pages that uh, that uh, young students might not follow because they don't want the larger social media pages. They just want to be on Snapchat with their friends or WeChat with their friends. But in today's virtual world, following social media pages for the universities is so important to just sort of get some perspective of what's happening on campus, as well as some more regular updates happening on that. Very specific to university programs, um, there will be virtual information sessions on every university webpage. There might be pre-recorded ones. There will definitely be live ones. They will have varying times. So it's a great idea when you're researching universities to sign up for a virtual information session. Virtual one-on-one meetings and interviews. Every institution is happy to have a virtual one-on-one meeting with prospective students to talk about any questions you may have, go over the admissions process, go over any kind of questions that you may have. Besides some generic information sessions, there's also a ton of specialty sessions. And this is where I think, because of COVID, this area in our world has really thrived. Before, you might have to come to admitted student day to talk to faculty, or an open house to talk to faculty about major and campus activity. And now there are a tremendous amount of pre-recorded and live specialty sessions happening, whether it's by major, whether it's by scholarship, immigration, etc. Many other universities are also using live chat features on their website, kind of instant, quick questions and answers. A great opportunity just to chat really quick. Live chat can be with admissions counselors, sometimes with students. And then, of course, there are a tremendous amount of videos on on each university website. So beyond sort of those pre-recorded info sessions, you're going to have videos of student profiles, of research happening on campus, of activities happening on campus, even things like previous move-in weekends and sporting events. So that really helps give you a sense of campus life. And one of the things that I think is so great about all of watching those videos versus not versus coming in person, because of course we want and can't wait for you one day to be coming in person, but it gives you a perspective throughout time on campus, versus a 2-hour visit on campus. So even when you are coming on campus, I always encourage students to really watch those videos online, because it gives you just that perspective. So I am going to go to the next slide and I believe pass it along to my colleagues. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stacy. So I'm going to take this next slide and we're going to talk now about how to select a good college for yourself. You know, there's so many options out there. Not sure if everyone on the call today is aware of this, but depending on how you count, there are some 4,000 or more colleges and universities just in the United States alone. Some of you may be looking at colleges and universities in other countries as well. So and the counselors on the call today will really appreciate this. Our mantra, what we always like to emphasize when advising students in general, is that the most important thing is fit. Where will you find the best fit for yourself based on your goals, your aims, your personality, the kind of environment that feels right for you? So these are a number of different considerations that you should be bearing in mind when you're doing a college search. Certainly, almost goes without saying, degree programs, what you want to study, what you want to major in. arguably the most important, if not, certainly one of the most important considerations. So what is it that you're looking to major in, or what is it that you're looking to minor in? And does the college or universities that are kind of top of your list that you're considering offer that particular program of study? Are they strong, particularly strong in that particular program of study? So that's certainly something that's should be top of mind. Cost of attendance. Just like there's a wide variety of different colleges and universities in the United States, there's a wide variety of costs of attendance of colleges and universities in the United States. For an international student, say, who is starting at a 2-year community college in the United States, the cost of tuition could be as low as about $6,000-7,000 US per year, depending on location. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you're going to a very high-priced private university, you could be paying 50,000 or even more US dollars per year. And that's just tuition, right? So you also need to factor in the cost of living in a given environment. So some parts of the United States, not too expensive. Other parts of the United States, much more expensive. So most universities on their websites will feature a total cost of attendance estimate for international students, and you can usually find that on the international admissions site of a respective university or college that you're looking at. Location, location. Many of you tuning in today are probably from countries that are big and vast and diverse, just like the United States. It would be a mistake to think of the United States as just one type of place. This is a very, very diverse country, and locations and cultures, even subcultures within the United States, really vary. Are you the type of student who wants to be in a big city? Are you the type of student who wants to be near a big city, but not in a big city? Are you the type of student that wants to be in a more rural environment? Maybe a quieter environment? Are you someone that likes the 4 seasons weather-wise, winter, spring, summer, fall? Or are you someone who preferred to be in a climate that's more the same, more uniform all year long, more warm all year long, let's say? So lots of considerations there. Public versus private. The big sort of 2 buckets of categories of universities and colleges in the United States are public on the one hand, private on the other. We on the call today, on the session today, are all public universities. Public universities mean that we derive a significant portion of our funding from our state government, whereas a private university is one where the overarching funding comes from the tuition that students and enrollees pay. So no good versus bad there, but those are just a couple of distinctions. Public universities will generally be more affordable because of that, what we call governmental subsidy. So it reduces the overall operating costs for us. So therefore, we don't have to charge as much tuition as a private university may. Religious affiliation. Maybe some of you on the call today are from a particular religious faith. Say Catholic is one example. There are Catholic universities in the United States. There are Jesuit universities in the United States, and there are others that that sort of affiliate with a specific faith or religion. And if that's important to you, you can find options that meet those needs. Diversity is another big one. Depending on where you're going to study, you may find a student population that is very diverse. And I think that is true of all 3 of our universities on the call today. Whereas in other cases, you may find where the student population is a little bit more ethnically and culturally homogenous, meaning everyone's much from the same heritage. No good or bad there, although personally, for an international student, my advice would be you might want to seek out options that feature a lot of student and faculty diversity, because those are generally going to be much more kind of inclusive environments, welcoming of people from different backgrounds. Size, again, just like tuition, right, widely varies. You have some colleges and universities in the United States where maybe there are only a couple of thousand students, really. and others that are as large as 50,000 students or more. Depending on your own personal preference, you might want a smaller college, or you might want a much bigger college. That's really, like most all of these, a very personal decision, but you need to do your research there. Rankings and reputation, we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment, but certainly everyone is aware of the world of rankings. And I think the bottom line there is that what we call in Latin, caveat emptor, buyer beware, meaning student searching, beware, and just bear in mind the pros and cons of rankings. And again, more on that in a moment. Student life, very important feature of American universities. This isn't true in all countries, right? Not all countries feature university systems, so to speak, where student life is a big component of the experience. And by student life, we're talking largely about all of the fun, cool, stimulating things that happen outside of the classroom to make for a much more enriching experience for students at our universities. So it could be things like clubs or student government or concerts, music concerts, or athletics, the next one on the list, big fun basketball or football games. You'll want to look at the extent to which there's a robust student life component at the universities that you're considering. And again, no good or bad. Some students don't want to be part of any of that, whereas others really thrive. And we tend to find a lot of our international students do appreciate the opportunities for involvement. Last but not least, job placement. This is an important one, right, for our counselors and students on the call. Increasingly, you will find that in the United States, more and more universities are prioritizing so-called career services. So any university that's sort of reputable, including all three of ours, will have a dedicated career center or career services center. It might be called different things. But their job, the job of those folks that work in those offices, is to help our students with their job search, right? So that might entail things like resume writing workshops or interview preparation or networking events with companies or nonprofit organizations. And if you were to look at the Career Center website of a given college or university or consult other reputable sources, you can learn more about what kinds of industries and fields do the graduates of that school end up in. You can find out what specific companies are the graduates of that college or university tending to wind up in. And we know that, especially parents that might be on the call, this is also a very important consideration in terms of your return on what you are investing in your child's future. So with that, I think I'll go to the next slide, if I may. So quickly here, just a number of different options outside of individual college and universities' websites to learn more information about the many options out there. The first one in the upper left-hand corner, Big Future, that's a site that is run by the College Board. And for those of you who might not be aware, the College Board is the organization in the US that runs the SAT test, as well as runs AP coursework and exams. That's a very good site. CapEx is an interesting site where you can sort of sort and look at universities based on your test scores or based on your grade point average and get a better sense of what might be a good fit for you based on your own academic profile. College Navigator, the one in the upper right-hand corner, this is a great one because it is run by the US Department of Education. So it is a very, I think you can say, trustworthy source of information. It's the federal government that compiles lots and lots and lots of information about colleges and universities, and you can do various sorts and searches based on your criteria. And last, US News and World Report. Some of you may know this one. This is the organization that does the rankings, the well-known rankings. One just myth that we like to bust. Some students and parents believe that the US News and World Report is a governmental source of information on colleges and universities. It is not. It is a commercial organization, and nonetheless, it is a decent source of information on colleges and universities. So With that, I think I'm going to now turn it over to the next slide, and Stefan is going to talk a little bit about rankings.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you very much, Eddie, for that great overview and segue. And as you were just discussing, US News is one of many different ranking systems that exist to try to create a hierarchy of the strengths and weaknesses of different colleges and universities within the United States. There are pros and cons. There are positives and negatives. We certainly recognize that students look at these, and in particular for international students who have not come through a secondary school system and had the same type of guidance from guidance counselors, these can often be very useful to try to just understand, again, what those strengths and weaknesses are. As you're evaluating the rankings, a couple of factors that we would encourage you to keep in mind. Some of the pros. This is a quick way for you to compare colleges using a common set of factors, but it's also important for you to understand what are those factors by which the ranking system is actually using, and what are they potentially not using, and how does that relate to, just at the beginning of what Eddie was speaking about, what's important for you? Which factors are going to determine whether you're going to have the best fit at a university? They provide easy access in general cases to statistics, so you can dive more deeply into things like graduation rates, cost of attendance, size of an institution, and that could be a really easy way for you to find that information. Expose major gaps in quality. And I think that's something that all universities are mindful of when it comes to the rankings, which is to say that if there is a specific attribute that you are most interested in and that is used in the methodology, and if a university is very, very lowly ranked by that ranking system, then that might be saying that there's something more that you should be looking at just to make sure that the university is going to wind up meeting your needs. In terms of the cons, some of the drawbacks of the rankings, they may not be using the factors that are important to you in determining how to rank their different universities. So again, take a look at those methods. Most of them do not measure learning. Some try to, but in many other cases, they're not measuring exactly what you're getting out of a classroom or extracurricular or type of experiential learning environment. Partially because it's really difficult to measure learning. And so there are other types of indicators that are utilized, but that's just something that to keep in mind as you're evaluating the ranking systems. And also, really, they do not measure your fit at a college or university. And this is why we really think that in addition to the rankings, you should be supplementing your research with other ways of looking at universities, some of which Eddie just mentioned. I also wanted to share the importance of utilizing university websites. And university websites are organized in all sorts of different ways in the United States. One, I think, important decision point when you go to a university website that you should consider outright is from the homepage, assuming you're landing on the homepage. Where do you go next? Certainly a homepage for a university is going to give you some flavor for the university spirit, and you'll be able to find some recent news and perhaps some other bragging points from the university. But really, there are two directions that you can go. One would be towards the admissions component of the university website. That is very much geared towards prospective students like you. There is where you're generally going to find admissions policies, the steps to apply, an overview of academic offerings, an overview of campus life offerings, specific information about costs and aid, what you can expect to be paying, and also generally fast facts, quick way to be able to get information that you're looking for. From the homepage, you can also go in a different direction. Most academic departments at universities maintain their own website. And very often these websites are geared not just towards prospective students, but also for other audiences, including current students, faculty members, prospective faculty members, alumni. So it's important to keep in mind that admissions websites are generally the ones that are talking specifically to you, whereas department websites are talking to a much broader audience. There on the department websites, however, you're likely to find very detailed information about an academic program. That's likely to include the curriculum, degree requirements, research areas, faculty profiles, so you could actually see, is there a faculty member at this university whose interests align with my own, who I might be able to adopt as a mentor? You'd be able to find lists of courses and many current student resources, including clubs that are affiliated with an academic program. Both of them have value. But it's important that as you really start to narrow down which universities you're interested in, that you take a look at both. Very often I like to advise students, if you're unsure of what your major is at this particular point, or if you're just looking for a broad set of information to be able to evaluate a university, the admissions website is probably your best bet as a starter. And once you gain that insight and really determine this is a university you want to learn more about, then move on to the department website. As has previously been mentioned by Stacy, virtual tours are outstanding resources right now. And in fact, they in many ways always happen because pragmatically, as Eddie mentioned, there are 4,000 or so higher education colleges, universities in the United States. Very challenging, even if you live in the United States, to visit all of them. And as you're making your list, you might be starting with a very large list. A virtual tour is one quick way for you to be able to narrow down whether you can envision yourself at a university. One company, it's proprietary, UVisit, hosts many virtual tours across universities and colleges in the United States. If you were to go to the URL that I have listed there, uvisit.com/college search, you're likely to find access to many of the colleges that you're looking at. And they also offer options to take a virtual tour in virtual reality if you happen to have an Oculus or even a Google Cardboard. You basically turn your phone into a VR device. All three universities here have really robust virtual tours, and I encourage you to take all of them. With that, I'll turn this back to Eddie.
Thanks so much, Stefan. So just quickly through this, another couple of sources of information. For those of you who are not aware already of Education USA, please become aware of Education USA. They are a fantastic, fantastic resource. I think we might have one or more of our Education USA advisor colleagues on this call today. The Education USA is a US government subsidized and supported network of about 400 centers throughout the world. In last count, about 170 different countries. Some of them are located at US embassies, others are located in the middle of a prominent cities abroad. But basically, the Education USA advisors who work at these organizations and centers are dedicated full-time to providing unbiased advice about colleges and universities in the United States, including, the strengths of certain colleges, scholarship information, testing requirements. I can't say enough about what a fantastic resource Education USA is. So you can just Google them and you can find an advising center near you. All of them now operate virtually. Many of them operate in person when conditions allow. So check those out. Admissions counselors, kind of specifically to what Stefan was just sharing about admissions websites, usually on international admissions websites of colleges and universities, you can find contact information for admissions counselors. And these are folks who are dedicated to serving international students, such as yourself, and answering their specific questions, your specific questions. That is a nice photo right there of our colleague at SDSU, Vivian, who works with Chinese students. And all of our universities have dedicated counselors, sometimes specific to certain parts of the world, who are there able to answer your questions. So I think we'll go to the next slide, if we may. I'm not going to spend time on this now. We'll come back to it in the Q&A if we so desire, because we have a lot more cool and great content to cover. But this is a quick snapshot of the international student visa process. So again, let's talk about that in Q&A if anyone's interested. Next slide, please. Paying for college. This is a big one, right? We had a question or two already about scholarships. Again, point being here, as a starting point, you really want to get clear on the so-called total cost of attendance for the colleges and universities you're considering, because again, it can vary very widely, as can policies about the offering of scholarships. Generally, there are two main types of scholarships that U.S. universities offer. One category is called merit-based. The other one is called need-based. Merit-based tends to be based on your grades in high school or other academic achievements or other kind of extracurricular accomplishments that you've notched. Need-based aid, on the other hand, is about your financial need that is demonstrated via financial documentation and supplemental documentation that you may submit either as part of the application or later on in the process in applying for colleges. Colleges and universities vary widely, again, in terms of their availability of scholarships. So it's best always to inquire with the specific college or university that you may be considering. But there is a good bit of opportunity out there if you search and know who to ask. Athletic scholarships are also available. Student loans, this is a big one. Student loans are out and about. You can access student loans through private sources, but my word of advice is just be careful, because you want to look at repayment terms. You want to look at interest rates, because those can vary widely. And you want to be eyes wide open about the financial obligations or debt that you might be taking on. Quickly on the other column, employment, international students can work on campus up to 20 hours per week during the academic terms and 40 hours per week full-time during breaks like summer or winter. Co-op programs are another way of describing internships. Lots of universities offer internship opportunities, sometimes sandwiched within the academic program itself, meaning a required part of it, and some of those can be paid. Last but not least, some universities and colleges will also offer you credit from your courses that you've taken, like AP, Advanced Placement. Another interesting tip to shorten your time in university is to consider taking summer classes or winter session classes, because that's a way to speed up your degree obtainment, and that way you wouldn't have to spend as long a period of time earning your degree and paying for the cost of living. So with that, maybe we'll go to the next slide. Oh, great. Okay. I'm happy to turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Sandra, to talk a little bit about SDSU. And now we're going to cover information on all of our great universities.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I really want to take the time, obviously to thank everybody and also my colleagues here who have shared a lot about what you need to consider as you're thinking about an institution. And so today I'm going to share more about what San Diego State University has to offer you, and then also a little bit about the city where we're located at. And that's really an important consideration when you're looking and thinking about an institution, is really trying to identify that fit and see if you see yourself within that institution. And if that's a place where you would then be considering really part of that campus community. So I think that that's an important consideration. And so, like I said, I'll share more about what San Diego State has to offer. And then obviously afterwards answer any questions you may have about the application process or anything else regarding the university and applying to it. Next slide, please. So as you can see, in thinking about why San Diego, I mean, the images really don't do it justice. I mean, San Diego is a beautiful city located in the southern part of California. And we do actually offer many different opportunities for students to connect within the city. If you think about really what we offer as far as the university is we actually have a trolley that actually is located within the campus and allows you to actually go to downtown, to even actually travel if you wanted to outside of downtown to the mountains, because really we provide access to many different opportunities within the city. And I think really one of the things that we really I actually brag about is our beautiful weather that allows us to actually be outdoors, even sometimes more than indoors, because we actually do, we see students on campus, actually when it's 65 degrees wearing sweaters and scarves, because most of the time we're really taking advantage of the weather of 75 degrees. So I think we're really lucky in that. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I think I was talking about that. So we offer within the city, I mean, we're actually only a couple miles away from, the mountains, the border. I mean, we actually have students who actually, go across the border and complete internships or actually even do research work. We're really connected to, because of the, like I mentioned, the trolley being on campus, we actually have the opportunity to connect with different parts of the city, and our location is really unique. I think this is one of the things that, as you're thinking about institutions, is realizing, where are the industries, and especially in your interests. In San Diego, we're very known for our biotech and also that type of industry. So it allows us to really connect students with that. As far as SDSU, we really pride ourselves on making an impact, and our campus is one of the 23 CSU campuses within the CSU system. We serve about 35,000 students, and 3,000 of them are international students. And even though this may seem like a large public institution, we really are dedicated to providing students the opportunity to really connect within their student organizations, within their campus communities, to really provide a small, where it seems like it's a really small community. And this is something that you'll see this across campus, often when we're on campus and we're walking from one place to another, you're constantly interacting with students who are kind of working together or actually really interacting with one another, because of the fact that when you do get admitted and you do become part of the campus community, it really just makes students feel like a really small community. It is really our mission to, for those who actually decide to come to San Diego State, is to really provide the hands-on learning experience. And I think this is one of the reasons why we, recognize for really providing that hands-on experience within the classroom and also outside of the classroom. We do offer, many different majors. We have about 97 different majors that students could choose from, within our 7 colleges. These include the College of Business, the College of Education, Engineering, Health and Human Services, Professional Studies and Fine Arts, and in our College of Arts and Letters and Sciences. What this means to you as a student is that you have the opportunity to study anything from entrepreneurship to marine biology to television and film to aerospace engineering. And so it really does provide a great opportunity for you to really, study depending. And some students actually decide to double major or get a minor in a different field. Um, this really does give students, the opportunity to really complement their studies to ensure that whatever they're interested in, they're able to pursue at the university. Next slide. Now, given, what I mentioned about this hands-on learning, we have been recognized by Princeton Review, US News and World Report for offering quality and affordable education. You definitely will be prepared to enter your career choice, as we really pride ourselves in being able to allow you, to conduct research if you're interested, to participate in internships. Many of our programs actually require students to engage in some type of hands-on internship experience for their program. They usually do this at the end of their studies and is through a capstone experience, really working very closely with our faculty. Our faculty really do invest in mentoring our students. To them, it's important that students actually are able to, not only engage within the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. And in terms of the research, and these are just some of the images of students, we have students who actually will conduct research in the engineering lab. We're really working closely side by side with their faculty. Many of them actually, are producing journal articles and research studies with other students. And our faculty really take pride in that. Or in our bioscience center, some of our students actually, even as early as their freshman year, they can actually get involved. And this is one of the things that, as you think about institutions, there's those who really will provide opportunities, maybe within, within the classroom or outside of the classroom. And it depending on how you want to get engaged, reaching out to faculty early really allows you that ability to kind of connect with them. For example, one of our student assistants who's been working with us for some time, she's been working since her freshman year with the same faculty member, and she's in biology. And so actually she's getting close to graduating, and they will be co-authoring a research piece because of their involvement since her freshman year. And this is really something that, like I said, at San Diego State University, we really want to expose students to that experience early on. Next slide. So as far as involvement, this is one thing that I think sometimes students, don't take quite as much advantage of. And I think it's really important for you to think about because our students are involved. I mean, we offer over 300 student organizations, and these could range. They could be based on your major, or they could be culturally based, and our students who get involved in these organizations really get connected with the campus very differently, and they're able to build a community. And this is something that many of our students, whether it be through Associated Students, which is our student-based organization, or even within the International Student Center, there's also opportunities to get involved there with culturally based organizations. And you find that students really are able to connect with each other. And this provides a network for students. And within the campus, we see this, throughout our different events, that they're actually really being, involved and coming together as a group. We have our Aztec Rock Hunger event, which is an event where we get to, where the student organizations compete with one another to collect food for our San Diego Food Bank. And it's a competition with each other, trying to figure out who's going to actually be the one who's going to be competing or actually winning the competition of being able to collect the most. And you see this really vibrant community within the campus that really, I think, allows us to really engage in a different way. Next slide. And this just kind of highlights a little bit more about the different ways. I mean, we actually, when we're back on campus, we have a farmer's market, which is every Thursday. Students are able to actually participate in that. Usually during the beginning of the semester, there's Aztec nights where students are able to actually come together, listen to music. There's different events that are very traditional to the campus, and they're able to participate. That we actually have a bowling alley within our student union, which once again, it's a very kind of vibrant and lively place for students to engage. But most importantly, I think, is that mentoring piece. It's really students wanting to help others, and faculty and staff really reaching out to make sure that students feel connected within that campus community. That is really something that is core to the university and its values. Next slide. So as far as support that we offer students, we do have an International Student Center, which is very active. Many of our students, once they actually are on campus, will come and visit the center to really, here's where you'll find an actual advisor that will help you navigate some of the challenges that you may encounter, especially as you transition into your new environment. In addition to that, we do have within this international students, people there that will help you with immigration, if you're applying for like your CPT, your OPT, which are opportunities for you to actually, participate in some type of internship or, work experience. They're going to help navigate, through all these various processes that you'll need to do as part of this. Next slide. And this just kind of highlights a little bit more about, like I said, it's not only students obviously are invested in doing well in their classes and studying and really connecting with their faculty, but there's also a lot to do on campus. We have actually the ARC, which is our Aztec Recreation Center, which allows students to, if they wanted to go rock climbing or actually, exercise there, we do have some great facilities there. It actually is going through a whole remodel, which they're going to make it now 2-story. In addition to that, we have our Aztec Aquaplex, which students can engage throughout. We have various swimming pools actually on campus. It really does, I know the images, like I said, don't do it justice, but it does in some of the residence halls. It looks like if you're in a resort, you really are vacationing, but this is something that students can really engage in. We have our aquatic center, which students can take courses like kayaking, surfing, if you wanted to learn how to surf. And this is actually for credit. You could actually take a 1-unit class that allows you to learn something like this, take advantage of our beautiful beaches, and actually get credit for it. Next slide. Now, a little bit about our tuition and fees. So as you're thinking about, and I think Eddie mentioned this, when you're thinking about cost of attendance, for us, you do pay a basic tuition and fees, which is about close to $8,000. In addition to that, students who are non-residents, do pay a non-resident fee. And this is a per unit cost. But on average for annual, it would be about $11,000 or $12,000. And then also on-campus housing will vary. And this depends if you live on campus. Most of our students are required to live on campus for their first 2 years, or if you actually live around campus. But you should be estimating about $18,500 for that. And then health insurance, and this is something that is required from all of our international students who study in the university. They will be required to pay health insurance. And then books and supplies and transportation will vary by student, but it's important that you probably, estimate about $2,200 for that. So on average, you're looking at about $42,000, which once again, I think it's very affordable given, really what I share with you, the experiences and what you're able to really take advantage of. I mean, when you compare, institutions, I mean, this is something that, for San Diego State University, it's really recognized for being an affordable institution for students. And next slide. So as far as, staying in touch, I think it's important, if you have questions about our process, how you apply to the university, please visit our website. There's lots of information there, steps that you can take on how to complete the application. In addition to that, there's information about who to contact. Follow us on social media. This is a really good way to really get to know the students and the community of the institution and stay connected. I mean, we offer virtual visits where you could come and sit down and interact with one of our students or our staff who could really walk you through the process of applying to the university, and then take advantage of our virtual tour. It's out there. You really are able to see the campus, our facilities, our classrooms. So I would invite you to take advantage of that. And really, if you have questions about our process or the institution, feel free to ask here today or visit us on our website. So I'll go ahead and I think pass it on to Alex.
Thank you so much, Sandra. As was mentioned, my name is Alex Smith. I'm Assistant Director of International Admissions at Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. Go to the next slide, please. And so just to give you an idea where Michigan is located, we are in the region of the US called the Midwest. So we are not on the East Coast, we're not on the West Coast, we are kind of in the north central part of the country there. And you see if one of the major cities there that's closest to us is Detroit, but we are also just a few hours away from Chicago. That's one of the nice things about the Midwest is that many of our cities are just within a few hours of each other, and we're also surrounded by big, beautiful freshwater lakes. So one of my favorite things about Michigan and living in Michigan for most of my life is that we have a nice mix of urban and rural here. So as was mentioned earlier in the presentation by Eddie, that's a really important part as you're considering fit and where you might like to attend when you're looking at a university. So getting to us, most students will fly into the Detroit Metro Airport. That's the largest international airport closest to us, but we also have an airport here in Lansing, which is our state capital in Michigan. So our area, if you're kind of interested in understanding this local area, we've got just over 300,000 people in the Lansing area, the Michigan State Capital. So it's a smaller city, depending on where you're joining us from. That might sound like a pretty small city, but there's a lot of activity here. And one of my favorite things about it is that it's really focused on young people. The mayor of our town, East Lansing, is 24, if you can believe that. So it's very much a town that is designed and growing with our young people in mind. And so I think that creates a great environment for studying. Next slide, please. So as you'll see here, we are an extremely large university. We're one of the largest universities in the United States with nearly 50,000 students on one campus here in East Lansing, where I'm located. And as you'll see here, the majority of our students are undergrads. So nearly 40,000 of those students are undergraduate students living that college experience that many of you may see in the media and things like that, living on one large campus and a very robust residence hall system. So we have 26 residence halls on our campus, and it's one of the largest residence hall systems in the country. So we get a lot of questions about accommodations and things like that, and know that we are very well equipped to host you for as long as you'd like to stay on campus during your time here. So sometimes students wonder if they have to stay on or if they can stay on. With that many residence halls, yes, you can definitely stay on campus for your time at the university. But as you'll see in the pictures here, we have some great places to stay off campus as well. We've got more than 200 different areas of study here, or majors, as many folks will maybe be familiar with. And we're well known for business, engineering, social sciences, natural sciences, and actually agriculture as well. We were founded as an agricultural institution. So we have farms and research facilities on campus, but agriculture isn't just about farming, of course. It's about food and supply chains and working with animals, all these kinds of things. So that's something that's kind of unique about Michigan State. Next slide, please. Outside of the classroom, there are all kinds of things that you can get involved with at a place this big. We're really proud of those opportunities, and we really think that makes for a great experience when you're considering a place like Michigan State. But these three pieces here are probably the most popular options when we speak with our current students, things that they really value about Michigan State. So if you are the kind of person who maybe has some really intriguing entrepreneurship ideas or business related ideas, we can definitely nurture that here. And there's lots of resources to help you perhaps work with other students on a business idea, or if you're interested in developing apps and those kinds of things. We have lots of resources for our undergrads, and we even have an entrepreneurship minor here that's very well regarded. So keep that in mind if that's something that you're passionate about now, or you might be considering in the future. Undergraduate research at Michigan State is very popular. I think last year we ended up about 33% of our undergrads were engaged in some kind of research project. So whether that's something you're pursuing on your own, or if you're working with another group of students or a faculty member here on campus, it's a great way to dig a little bit deeper into the topic that you're studying. And so I think when we talk about research, a lot of people might think about the hard sciences first, right? Like developing new medicines, those kinds of things. But research at Michigan State crosses all kinds of different disciplines. So it doesn't matter if you're studying English or if you're studying packaging, which is a major that we have at Michigan State. There's lots of opportunities to dig a little bit deeper, get some great experience. And that's something I would highly recommend if any of you are thinking about continuing on after getting an undergraduate degree. Having some experience with research will be very, very valuable if you're considering getting a master's or going beyond that. And then education abroad, we have programs on all 7 continents. So we even send students to Antarctica during the Antarctic summer. So we have programs for students to explore the world, starting at Michigan State, of course, too. Next slide, please. So we do want to share some information about costs, of course, but also give you some more information about scholarships as well. So this is a total for 2 semesters, including room and board. And so Sandra was showing some of the additional fees that students might consider, and we certainly have a few additional fees as well. But this is the bulk of what you should consider as you're looking at the estimated costs for Michigan State. And if we can go to the next slide real quick, I'll just talk about our scholarships very briefly so you understand that Michigan State does offer merit-based scholarships to international applicants. And when you apply, you're automatically considered. As you're reviewing some of the information here, if you happen to look later, I would just add one update. We do not require the ACT or SAT. We are fully test optional for this year and for the next 5 years moving forward. So just know that we will not be requiring the SAT for higher merit-based scholarships. So that's one update I would make to this particular page here. But we continue to award scholarships through March of this year, and I assume for future years as well. That shouldn't change. So basically, when you apply, there's no additional application. You submit your application for admission, and our scholarships typically range from 10 to 50% of the cost that you saw on the previous slide. So for students who have performed highly, and regardless of your curriculum, IB, AP, A levels, any national curriculum you might be taking, we will look at your performance, and we don't typically, from Michigan State's perspective, try to translate that into a US 4.0 GPA. We'll look at that more within your context and what that means in your country or within your school and those kinds of things. So that's typically how we would view that for scholarship consideration, as well as our honors college, which is another great opportunity for you to continue to challenge yourself at the university. Not like university education isn't a challenge enough, but if you really want to pursue further studies or do some of the research that I mentioned, the honors college can be a great way to do that during your time as an undergrad. Next slide, please. Quick look at our admissions timeline. So for folks on the call right now who maybe are advising students, or if you're a student or a parent yourself, this might be helpful just to understand. We have an early action timeline, a regular admission timeline, which we are currently in right now. So students that are applying right now would hear back from us no later than March 31st. And then students who apply after February 1st, which is coming up pretty soon here, it's a rolling admission basis, meaning that you would hear back from us based on how much space we have in our class. So for students considering applying in the future, we highly recommend applying by November 1st of your final year of high school for maximum scholarship consideration. But then you would also hear back from us no later than January 15th. So that's non-binding. That's different from early decision. If you've heard the different terms, early action just means basically that you're in our group that's shown that interest up front, and you would hear back from us a little bit earlier than some other folks, and that gives you more time to ask questions and look through some of your options and try to figure out what university might be the best fit for you. And then at the bottom there, you'll see our national decision deadline of May 1st. That is across the board in the United States. So you have up until that time to decide where you'd like to enroll. So that's kind of universal, and certainly if you decide before that, that's wonderful. You're welcome to submit your deposit and start working through the enrollment process prior to that. But that is the date for US universities that we ask that you let us know if you plan to enroll or not. And with that, I do see that we have our contact page there. So if you visit that page, it'll actually direct you to your specific admissions counselor who is an expert with your region. So because I know we have folks from all over the globe with us today, that's a great place to start. I'll also make sure that I leave my contact information in the chat for you as well. Thank you so much, and on to Stony Brook.
Thank you so much. And I know we're running a little over time, so I want to thank so many of you for hanging with us. I'm going to go through this really quick because I'm from New York, so I talk fast anyway. Stony Brook University is a large comprehensive research university. We're located in Stony Brook, New York, which is on this really long island called Long Island, which is about an hour from New York City. And you can see on this map, it's really about the middle of the island that that grayish, whitish line from the start in New York City is a train station, which takes you right into New York City. So next slide, please. And I think just press it one more time, Stefan. There we go. So we are about 26,000 students, about 17,000 undergraduate students with over 4,600 international students from over 100 countries. So we talked a little bit before about finding the right fit and the diversity. And so Stony Brook, like my colleagues, an extremely diverse institution and extremely welcoming of international students. As you can see from the picture, we are located very close to the water as well. As I mentioned, we're on an island, so obviously surrounded by water, about 2 miles from our North Shore beaches in a very residential and suburban community with close proximity to, again, New York City. Next slide. Excuse me, Stony Brook offers more than 200 academic majors and programs. Within our College of Arts and Sciences, you'll have popular programs in the humanities, your typical English, your cultural studies, your history, your political science, your social sciences. Will include things like economics and psychology, where your more natural sciences include your biology, your chemistry, biochemistry, physics, mathematics. Our College of Engineering and Applied Sciences probably are most popular programs. Are more competitive programs, will include computer science, will include your computer science program, will include your applied math and statistics, civil engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering. You have business programs like management and marketing, finance, accounting. Our School of Journalism, not just print, will include multimedia, social media. And then the picture you're seeing here, your School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, sustainability studies, environmental design. We actually were just ranked number 3 in the nation for programs in that will include doing good for the climate and climate control and climate change. So great programs if you're interested in like coastal water changes and climate changes. So next slide, please. Our cost is about $25,000 a year in tuition, plus room and board. We do offer merit-based scholarships, as well as we are part of the hashtag You Are Welcome Here campaign, which offers a 50% off tuition based on not your merit or need, but based on your leadership abilities and how you would bring those leadership skills and qualities to Stony Brook by a short video submission or essay on that. Next slide. As we all talked about, we all have contacts and virtual visits. So we have, if you were to go on our website, which I think when I just moved to the next slide over, you can see how to contact us, but our virtual tour, virtual info sessions, as well as connecting with our counselors and chatting with students all through our website here. But in the essence of time, I'm just going to move it to the next slide. And same as MSU, you can scan our QR code. You can certainly shoot us an email, and in the chat box, I will put my email, direct email as well for anyone who wants to contact. So thank you so much for joining us. I believe we have answered all of the Q&A through responding. But if anyone has any last minute Q&A, please do type that in. If not, we are again so grateful that you have joined us today. I believe we will all put in the chat box our contact information one more time for everyone to have. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.